Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Hello, my name is Kris Roberts. Welcome to the Long Road. And before we get to go, I just want to admit that I was angry last week with some of the things that was happening on the federal election level. Did a little bit more research and just want to let you know I'm not any happier. Matter of fact, I'm angrier, and I don't know who I should be angry at. Maybe I should be angry for people like us, because we often vote the way we're told to vote. We're scared to tell anybody how we voted, because people be all over us, and people don't allow us the right to vote for who we think is the best candidate for the better of our country, for the better of our state, or the community. And I was talking last week about basically, they were saying like George Clooney and other big donors. And as I did research, it showed there were 75 super donors on a Zoom call. 74 said Biden has to go, or we don't pay any money. Then there was another group of, 300 super donors saying, hey, Joe has to go, or we're not paying our money. We're not giving any money. So even if there wasn't any cross references between those two, say you round it off, 400 people out of maybe 160 million voters have told the American people, you cannot vote for that person. We are not going to allow you to vote for this person that secured enough votes to be nominated to run for the presidency of the United States. Plain and simple, you cannot do it. 400 people say that. So we have, for example, 400 people, and we have some actors and some singers and stuff saying, you know what, you can't do that. Joe, you cannot run. We're not going to prevent you from running, but we're going to make sure you don't get another penny from us if you choose to run. Okay. As a history major and looking back, I'm not that naive not to realize that basically since the early 1900s, basically the federal government was a federal election could get bought. There's a picture in Puck magazine, an old magazine that used to criticize the government and things like that. And it's a picture in Congress. And then it's got all these different elected officials. And on each desk in the Capitol building was a price tag. So that's what you had to come up with to get that person to vote your way. And then we had, people like Teddy Roosevelt, a real progressive, not like today's progressive. An individual says, we're going to give a step up, not a handout. An individual that's going to say, hey, we're going to have child labor laws. An individual that says we're going to have compensation, we're going to build national parks and stuff. We're going to save America's treasures. And we're going to say, hey, America, we're not having one oil company control this. We're not having one steel company, not one railroad. We're breaking up monopolies so America can flourish. Okay? That was a progressive president. That was a president that looked out for the betterment of the American people. Someone who had his imperfections, just like everybody else has imperfections. But that was what a progressive leader was. Not what we consider progressive leaders now. We want people who, quote unquote, that are progressive. But one thing about a lot of progressive leaders, they can be bought. And they are being bought. No different than the Republican side, they're being bought. We do have individuals that go to Congress, idealistic, like Mr. Smith goes to Washington. But they learn really quickly that isn't the way the game is played up here. You might have got in on your own, but if you want to stay here, you're going to play for our rules. And our rules is what is best for the party. Just like I talked about last week, when President Biden says he's withdrawing, he will not accept the nomination because it's best for the party. Not the country first, the party first. So Republicans and Democrats are no different. Okay? They play this game. It's kind of like, I'm going to be the bad guy, you're going to be the good guy, and you go back and forth, back and forth. And at the end, hey, let's go to bar, let's go down to K Street, and let's have a big, expensive cigar at one of the K Street specials. That's where a lot of the lobbyists hang out. And I was in there on one with a lot of other elected officials from New Hampshire, the Speaker of the House, different things like that. And it was amazing. Really expensive cigars, no cheap ones. You had these skinny girls that would come in and walk around in little short suits and outfits and bring cigars, kind of like the old movies. And there it was. The cigars were all free. The drinks were all free. And me, I'm just sitting there watching because I don't smoke. I don't drink. I don't care if it's $100 cigar. I'm not smoking. I don't care. I don't drink, So all of a sudden, you could be sucking up a couple $100 in drinks and cigars. They're not given to you for nothing. You're being bought. They're expecting things in return. And so I went back, looking at it. Once Biden dropped out, Harris was able to raise over $200 million, pretty close to $250 million in less than a week. And I look at the $250 million. If we can raise $250 million in less than a week from these big donors, and yes, regular donors, people putting $5 and $10 in, why can't we raise that amount of money to ensure no kid goes to bed starving tonight? $250 million in 1 week for Harris in her run for the presidency, but we can't raise that to ensure that every kid in America has a warm meal tonight and doesn't go to bed hungry. You know why? Because those kids don't count. Those kids have no political value. So a lot of them just don't care. So they're not going to pay money for them. And I went and looked. From January 2023 to April 1st of 2024, $8.6 billion has been raised for the federal government. So when you count the presidency, the 534, shoot, the members of Congress, I think it's 534, and the 34 members of Senate that are running for election or re-election. So basically, for less than 500 positions, $8.6 billion has been raised. $8.6 billion. And like I said, President Harris, Freudian slip, the Vice President Harris has raised a $250 million in less than a week. And you say, well, that's a lot of money. Yes, it's a lot of money. So we went back to 2020. The 2020 election was $15.4 billion were spent on those elections for Congress, 1/3 of the Senate, and the presidency. What is that? When they put it in inflation and everything, an inflationary thing, that would be equivalent of $18.2 billion being spent on the 2024 elections. $18.2 billion. I've seen numbers where it could easily exceed $20 billion. $20 billion to elect Congress people, senators, and the President of the United States. When we look at Russia, we look at, used to look at Ukraine, and we look at some of the other countries, I thought they called them, I pronounce this word wrong, oligarchies. And they were saying is these multi-billionaires really had too much money, too much power in making the determination who we could vote for. So we don't have the ability to determine who we're going to vote for. So you got this small group of people, extremely wealthy, and they're going to say, Okay, Mr. Roberts, if you're going to vote Republican this time, you got three choices. Oh, Mr. Roberts, you're going to vote Democrat three times this time. You're going to have three choices. And basically, hey, so if I have a twin brother, he votes Republican, he gets one of three choices. I vote Democrat, get one of three choices. And guess what? Both of us only get to pick from selected choices. And we could go and say, oh, wait a minute. Okay, so for example, right now, you have Kamala Harris and you have Hillary Clinton. Okay? There is no question in the world. No, it's not take people's character or anything like that. There is no question in the world that Hillary Clinton is far more experienced and capable of being president than Kamala Harris. Okay? But it was decided that the only person that could do this would be Kamala Harris. Okay? So it wasn't like saying, you know what? Joe Biden's not going to run, and we're going to have an open convention. And so, hey, Hillary could throw her hat in and say, you know what? I would like to run for president of the United States. I've been Secretary of State. I've been a senator. I've been the First Lady. I've been all this. Okay? Kamala Harris, she's been a district attorney, state district attorney for a little while. She's a state senator for a little while. She gets jammed when she goes into, when she debates even the Democratic people. Tulsi Gabbard tore her right up with a couple of questions in the Democratic debate. So what happened is money decided that the only person on the Democrat side that Democrats or any other people in the United States could vote for, if they want to vote a Democrat, had to be Kamala Harris. 18 million people voted for Joe Biden. Okay? And they went to those 18 million people. You don't count. You don't care. We don't care about you. We don't care about your votes. We sucked the money out of you. You came to the primaries. You bought our signs. You voted for that person. So we changed our mind. And now we started a precedent. That means someone who goes, say, 2028, goes in, wins the primary, all the primaries, secures enough delegates to get to be the nominee. These wealthy donors can say, well, you know what, we changed the mind. We don't like you. We're not going to support you. And you got to quit. Or the Democratic Party, National Committee has to find a way to get rid of you because we're not going to give you any money. And not only that, you know what? We're not going to give the people who are running for the Senate or running for the House or running for re-election any money. Political blackmail, buying of politicians, because if you allow this individual, even thought this individual, he or she won enough votes to get the nomination, we have made the determination. Hey, George Clooney says, you know what? I don't like her. She's got to go. Okay? Or George Soros goes and says, no, I don't like him. He's got to go. else my tens of millions of dollars stay in my bank account. In most places, that's called extortion. Okay? But then we go and say, hey, you know, Kamala Harris is a woman. She's a black woman. She's an Indian woman. And like, here's the catch. Because she's in the United States, one drop of black blood makes you black. You know? So for some of the people that on the Democratic Party side, that thing comes back to haunt them because she may not consider herself black. She may consider herself Indian. She may consider herself different ones. But for politically, it's a political advantage to be black. And who's going to criticize her? Well, you can't criticize her. And so the Democrats use a cop-out in saying, well, you know what? She's a woman. Well, Hillary Clinton was a woman. But she's a black woman now, and we can't pass over a black woman to be president of opportunity, be president of the United States. So again, what you go in and say to the people, especially the Democrats, I know you may not like her. I know you may not be the best and should be the best qualified, but she's black, and it's important for your white women not to be racist. You cannot be a white supremacist. You cannot be racist by comparing her skills set to Hillary's skill set. You have to wipe Hillary away. Hillary, it's like, Hillary who? That's the way it has to be. So here we are, instead of when we're getting ready to elect a president, we're stuck. So far, I look at the three, we're kind of 0 for 3. I don't know who number 4, the vice president of the Democratic side nominee is going to be. Jay Vance, I saw that movie. It wasn't exactly all honest. Yes, I know he was in the Marine Corps. Yes, he went to law school and everything. But the problem I have with J.D. Vance, as a Marine, he was no different than General Mattis and General Kelly, who said, this guy's unethical and I can't follow him. I can't continue working for him. I have to leave. Here's my resignation. That was Vance. But you know what? Vance was offered a seat on the train, and he was willing to sell out his convictions to get that seat on the train. Part of the Marine Corps, you're taught over and over again. Every single officer is taught this. 3 things. Is it legal? Is it ethical? Is it moral? If you can't meet those 3 guidelines, you don't do it. J.D. Vance came out and has said a number of times in the past, or words to it, that Trump was unethical and didn't have morals. But how do you throw that all away just to get on a ticket? I don't know. And that's why I find it really disappointing, is because we as Americans, we deserve better. We deserve much better. There are a heck of a lot of great leaders out there. But the problem with really great leaders, they're not for sale. They just aren't. They have an ethical standard. They have a moral standard. They refuse to go below. But I'll give you an example. When they go, hey, Kris, we want you to run for Congress. We want you to take any custody seat. But I go, hey, I don't have the kind of money that needs to do this. You know, it may cost $2 or $3 million to just run a campaign in this district. And I don't know how much the Democratic Party would come out to do it, or the Republican Party, all the stuff. And the guy goes, you know what? If you can do this for us, if you get elected and you can do this for us, I can create a super PAC. Now, what's a super PAC? If I create a regular PAC, in which most of us understand, is it's saying, okay, we have a PAC to elect Roberts. Well, the most you can donate to that PAC is $5,000. But you go, don't worry about that, Roberts. You know, make a commitment to us and we'll take care of you. And go, I'll go, Mr. Roberts, I will create a super PAC to fund your campaign. Go, what? But I don't think they can do that. Okay, here's the thing. We can't talk to you about funding your campaign. We can't talk to you about the type of commercials and advertisement we're going to put out there. But we can help provide assistance as long as we don't talk, or no one else talks. Okay, so, I'm going to make that commitment. So I make that commitment, and my little friend over here says, return New Hampshire to New Hampshire citizens super PAC. That's what we're going to name the PAC. Return New Hampshire to New Hampshire citizens. Okay. Well, then someone comes along and says, okay, here's a check for $10 million for that super PAC. Return New Hampshire to New Hampshire citizens. Because there's unlimited amount of money can go in there. You know, hey, if I'm Warren Buffett and I got $200 billion and I want to put $500 million in there, I can put $500 million in there, and I can run any kind of ads I want and all that kind of stuff, and just put not endorsed, not paid for the candidate, any candidate, funding by New Hampshire for New Hampshire, Return New Hampshire to New Hampshire Citizens Super PAC. We're not talking. So if, say, Mr. Buffett put $500 million, well, let's make it simple, $25 million. Okay, and he goes, hey, I have some problems, later on he goes, well, I have some problems with some of these states saying that venture capitalists cannot go in and buy up single-family homes. I think we need a federal law to prevent that from states from doing that. Hey, no problem. Well, I can do that. I can put that bill in, and then other lobbyists will be sending people coming over to co-sponsor the bill. Well, so hey, some of the venture capitalists that making a lot of money for Warren Buffett, Berkshire, maybe saying, hey, we're in the housing business and we're buying up single-family houses. Okay? And because we know single-family houses are going up in value, and really, if we go into Keene and buy 50 single-family houses, well, actually, if we buy 100 single-family houses and we take 50 off the market, or even 25 off the market, that automatically causes the value of those 75 houses that I have occupied to go up. And so in the meantime, those 25 that I don't have occupied, I can then go sell them at a higher price than I bought. Bingo. Another thing going on, they're talking about a wealth tax. Do you think these people who are donating millions and millions of dollars to these super PACs and everything? Oh, I totally agree with a wealth tax. Hell no, they don't agree with a wealth tax. So you got one group saying, yeah, we're going to do the wealth tax. But the other group saying, hey, I'm not going to do the wealth tax. So, hey, I've got billions, so I'm going to donate to both sides. I'm going to cover my bases. I want to make sure I don't lose. Other thing, guess what's coming up next year? One of the things that Congress and people like to do is they put an end of life on some of these bills, laws. With the so-called Trump tax cuts die next year. Okay? Everything returns to 2016 again. The reason they do put a 10-year life on it is because the Congressional Budget Office, when they what they call a score, and say, okay, over the next 10 years, this is going to add $1.2 trillion to the deficit. Okay. But over the next 15 years, it's going to add $7 trillion to the deficit. And over the next 20 years, it's going to add $15 trillion to the deficit. So they play the game to keep the numbers looking low. So corporations have been paying lower taxes for the last 10 years. Capital gains is lower. A whole bunch of this stuff is lower. Okay? Do you think people who own multi-million-dollar houses, people who are making capital gains, the stock market is going up from like 6,000 to 40,000, okay? That's all going to be capital gains. Long-term capital gains, short-term capital gains. So if the bill isn't, if the next Congress does not extend the capital gain, the Trump tax cuts, a lot of things are going to go wrong. The capital gains is, what will happen is a lot of people sell off the stock market to take their capital gains. If the stock market sold off, places like the state of New Hampshire, whose retirement fund is in the stock market, takes a nose. So we at our level then have to pay more money to increase the shortfall in the tax in the retirement fund. And so they just go play. So all this money, so when you take out, so 12 to 14 billion dollars at the minimum are coming from high rollers. And each one of these high rollers are not doing it for country God. They're doing it for their own pockets. And they are weighing their bets. They're looking at which party is going to do the best for them. Not what's going to be doing for the United States. And so we as a people have to start asking, do we listen to media? We've gotten to the point where we're letting people in the media tell us we really don't know what's going on, and they're not only are they asking the questions for us, they're giving us answers to the questions they're asking. Nope, you gotta do this, you gotta do this. We don't ask anything. We're becoming puppets. We're being like the Pied Piper. We're told which way to vote. And, who's it going to go? Is this election going to be a total election about race? Or is it going to be an election about white privilege, white supremacy, monogamous, all this stuff? What is it? Is it all it's going to boil down to 100 days, to one's laugh or cackle, one's comments and everything about how unethical the President of the United States is, but I want to be right behind him? Go back and forth. It is all going to be a diversion. Plain and simple, just a diversion. The people that are telling us who to vote for are getting something in return. A small group of Americans are getting something in return, where the majority of us are getting very little to nothing in return. And so one of the big things are now, is Vice President Harris. Was she the border czar? Or wasn't she the border czar? Was she assigned the task by the president to look at the border, to see what can be done? Back, forth. Okay? But that has nothing to do with her leadership skills right now. That is sucking air out of the room. What we should be doing right now is, we should be scheduling at least 3 debates. There should be at least 2 presidential debates, and there should be at least one vice presidential debate. Quality debates, not pre-planned, preloaded questions. rapid fire ones, and if you're going to personally attack the other person, you shut their mic off and say, keep on target, ask the question. You know what? If I ask you if the flag is red or blue, I don't know. I do not want to know what makes up the colors of red and blue. Hey, they're primary colors. No colors make them up. Okay, I don't want to know. I've asked you a question is, okay, you want to be the president of the United States. It looks like we're going to have $2 trillion deficit next year. What are you willing to stand up to reduce that deficit? Well, you know, I want to give Social Security a bigger increase. I want to do this. No. The question was, what are you going to do to start fixing the problems? If the moderators can't keep them on track, it's just a waste of time. Because you're there to ask the questions. Okay, I'm old. There are no Walter Cronkite's anymore who felt that their responsibility was to deliver the news, not opinionated news, not personal opinions, not opinions that the sponsors wanted them to say, but to bring the news. But hey, and when I go and say, why is this election? This is the most obvious one. You know, I had it in the back of my mind, yeah. But this time, when I looked at the money and I looked at how few people were involved and how people nonchalantly, no big deal. It's best for the party. The Republicans are just as guilty. When they say, well, Trump's best for the party, I think we can win more seats with Trump. There's a lot of Republicans in the Republican Party that care less about Trump. They're selling their souls too because they want to get elected or reelected, or they want to keep control of the House so I can be the Speaker or I could be the majority leader in the Senate. And they go, hey, you know what? So what if Trump gets elected and we keep the House and we keep the Senate, take over the Senate? He's a lame duck. We don't have to listen to him at all. We can just blow him to the side and let him steam. But when that happens, where is the benefit of the American people taken into consideration? Okay, if Trump was really worried or concerned about the benefit of the American people, wouldn't he pick like Nikki Haley to be his vice president? There's plenty of other Republicans out there that could have been his vice president. You know, maybe a bunch of them said, hey, not only no way, but hell no way, because I want a career after Trump. And if I run as vice president for Trump and Trump doesn't win, my career is over with. I don't want to risk it. And so Democrats were told, hey, you want to throw your hat in? You want to contest? We'll make sure you never have another chance in the future. You're done. You're over. And it upsets me to be this negative. I spent 21 years in the Marine Corps. Okay? 21 years in the Marine Corps for you to have the right to say what you want no matter how disgusting it was. Not going to agree with you, but that's part of your right of being American. I view it as a privilege to be a Marine officer, and I view it as a privilege to be an elected leader. And with privileges come responsibilities. And you know what? I can go. I got Lyndon Baines Johnson, civil rights. John F. Kennedy, protecting Europe. Freedom where freedom need. We're going to defend freedom anywhere. I'm going to put a man on the moon before the end of the century. We're going to have Little Rock, Arkansas, where little black girls can go to school with white kids, no matter how racist and violent the adults were. Harry Truman, the buck stops here. Theodore Roosevelt, Calvin Coolidge up from Vermont. They were all leaders. They had flaws, but they put the country first. And why is it important to me? I have a grandson who's in the Marines right now. He's on the USS Wasp with a Marine Battalion landing team and an air component element. Okay? They're on their way right now to Lebanon, off the coast of Lebanon right now. Okay? I was out in the Mediterranean years ago on November 4th, 1979, when the Iranian embassy was taken over. Okay? 25 years old, responsibility for 51 individuals. Okay? While these people are fighting to be commander-in-chief of our young men and women in the service, I don't see any single one of them comparing or showing concern for our young men and women that are going in harm's way. Not at all. The Secretary of Defense goes and says, we will do whatever is necessary to defend Israel if it gets into a wider war. Did not say anything about our troops that could be in danger. Okay. When you go and look at the people who have been president of the United States since the year 2001, can you tell me how many years we haven't been at war or our troops haven't been shot at? We don't call it war anymore, but basically since 2001, we have been putting American troops in harm's way. And we continue to put troops in harm's way. And again, if you want to study history of the United Kingdom. The United Kingdom used to be one of the wealthiest countries in the world, one of the most powerful armies in the world. It took all kinds of resources from around the world and was just in money, and then it got to a point it just had to keep spending more and more and more money on overseas military adventures. And now, United Kingdom can't even get some of their ships out of harbor without breaking down. They don't have a military force. They keep shrinking it. They're in such bad straits because they had leaders that didn't listen. They had leaders that were just worried about getting elected. They had leaders that were selling out to industries and other, whether it be union or associations or companies, so they could get money to get reelected. And so I was looking, for example, in the last few minutes, the President Biden's plan going out. So say Harris gets elected and then she serves the next 4 fiscal years. Okay. In the 4 fiscal years going forward, President Biden projects $6.4 trillion additional deficit. Oh yeah, it went over 35 trillion earlier this morning. So President Biden says if he would have got elected, by the next election cycle, the debt would be $41 trillion. Okay? President Biden's, that 4 years shows that the interest on the debt that we would have to pay would be less than $1.2 trillion. So that's what he's saying. $1.6 trillion over 4 years, about $400,000 a year. I mean, $400 million a year. So, and that would bring it up to 6.4 trillion. Well, when I looked at it so far this year, you know how much money we're paying on the interest on the debt? $900 billion. $900 billion. So if we kept that the same, that would be $3.6 billion increase. So that'd be $2 trillion extra. I keep getting millions, billions, trillions, you know. That'd be $2 trillion extra on the deficit. So instead of the deficit being 41 trillion, it would be 43 trillion. Okay? So right now, the federal government says if everything included, it will take $5 trillion in taxes. And 2.4 trillion in income tax, 1.6 trillion in payroll tax, $0.5 trillion in corporate tax, record profits and all this other kind of stuff, but they only have to pay $500 billion because of the Trump tax cuts and all those. So that's why these corporations want to make sure that the tax cuts are extended. Then we make $100 billion a year in tariffs. So President Trump says, hey, I'll just increase the tariffs so we'll get more taxes. Well, we increase the tariffs so that means we as American people just have to pay more because it's passed on. But just taking, looking at the thing between Medicare, Social Security, Department of Defense, interest and pensions, That's $5.5 trillion. So just those things, not funding anything else, we're a $500 billion in the hole. And also, when I was looking at, do you know the federal government pays $1.2 trillion to local communities and states? Okay? So what do you mean? What's the big deal? Okay, well, right now, every time we have a project at the airport, the federal government usually pays 95%, the state of New Hampshire 2.5%, the city of Keene 2.5%. The federal government spent $8 billion to the city of the Keene School District over the last 3 years. A lot of times when we have bridge projects and everything, the federal government pays 80%. We may come up with a 20% match. So there is a lot of money both on the school side, the city side, and the county side that comes from the federal government. So what is going to get squeezed out? As our people, our elected officials, are fighting to make sure they keep getting those donations, campaign contributions, what do they stand to lose by not giving extra money or reducing the money to the city, the state, the communities? Because you can't run for election and win unless you get campaign donations. And hey, I get the money for a super PAC. And if you're for sale, I got the money. And you don't have to worry about the city of Keene voting for you, because I can ensure that no one else even comes close of having the money to have an effective campaign. So that's why in most cases, who run is handpicked by the state party chair. And if you're not handpicked by the state party chair, you have very little chance of winning. I would like to apologize for my rant, but I'm just ticked. I want better for our country. I want better for our future. I want better for the hardworking Americans. We need better leadership. We need to demand better leadership. We need to go to corporations and stuff. Shove your money. We're not in Russia. We want to pick and vote for our own candidates, not who we're told to vote for.